Next up in our series of all division teams, we're on to the AFC North. We're picking just first teamers here. One quarterback, one pair of defensive ends, which are some very good ones in this division. And we'll see how this division in the North stacks up versus the other leagues, all division teams on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL on Twitter. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL, and when you enter promo code LockedOnNFL, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order of Birddogs. By the way, make sure you're subscribed up on the new Peacock and Williamson YouTube channel. You can find us everywhere else you get your podcasts in the audio versions as well. So had fun with our live mailbag episode yesterday. Yeah. We took a brief break from our series that we're going to be doing this summer of all division teams. We're on the second division so far. We've got the AFC East in the books. You can find that one. And now we're on to the AFC North, Matt. This is the division that you cover, the division you're most familiar with. And it starts at quarterback. And to be honest, looking at some of the position groups here, it's a good division. There's some top-heavy players, but it's not a deep division because almost every position group I look at, it's like, well, there's a clear guy, and maybe we won't even fill up 30 minutes in this podcast because it seems like there's too many easy decisions.
So a couple nuggets before we get started is I mentioned yesterday my Birddog shipment arrived and I tried them on. I'm going to definitely be wearing a new pair of shorts for my Saturday 50th party that's going to be here. So we're going to rage at the Williamson household, and I'll be wearing my Birddogs. And the tumbler was scooped up by my wife, probably never to be seen by me again. So that's long gone. So that's promising. Told everyone about that yesterday. And to expand on what you said, folks, my apologies in advance, but this will probably be the shortest of this 8-part series. I don't know that there is a lot to fight about. I mean, we're going to be really stressing here to come up with good battles. I don't know what that says about this division. I don't think it's a negative about the division. I think it's a really good, division top to bottom without a bad team in it. That's one of the few that can say that. And I think there are teams that you could conceivably see be Super Bowl contenders. But when we fight positionally, I don't think there's going to be many fights.
Is there a fight at quarterback? Well, let's start here because I think I have a clear winner. But, man, there's star power at quarterback. Deshaun Watson, I know everything that's gone on with his career. There's a time when we did this, it would be super easy. You plug in Deshaun Watson and you move on. He's your all-division quarterback. It wouldn't have been in the North, though. He would have been in the AFC South at that point. Then you have Lamar Jackson, who's won an MVP in this league. I mean, he just got paid, right? And Lamar Jackson's a superstar player. But then there's Joe Burrow. And I think that you absolutely have to consider Lamar Jackson, but I mean, for me, it's Joe Burrow, and I don't know if you think it's the other way around, and it's clearly a 2-horse race here. It's either Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, but I got to go with Joe Burrow.
You can't consider Watson, although I expect him to be better than he was last year. I mean, that's a low bar to get over. If he isn't, that might be the most disastrous trade in NFL history. But I could absolutely see Watson being a top 10 type of guy. I could see Lamar being a top 5 type of guy. I've done a ton of these, well, not a ton. I've run 5 or 6 of these underdog fantasy drafts, these best ball. I end up with Lamar everywhere. I think he's going to have nice passing numbers, phenomenal running stats, but clearly Pickett's the best quarterback in the division, right? I mean, we know that.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My apologies, apologies for leaving out second-year quarterback Kenny Pickett. Deserves some consideration.
I mean, he's the slam dunk, right? We're not going to fight about many. That's as easy as it gets. I mean, that's who you want, right?
We had a developmental slot on our roster. Maybe Kenny Pickett could sneak in there, but I don't think
it's Burrow. It's Burrow, and I think it's easily Burrow. I mean, if it was Burrow versus Mahomes, he would lose. If it was Burrow versus Allen, it would be a fight. Burrow versus anybody else is Burrow.
And really with Lamar, because there was a time, I mentioned how Watson, there would be a time where he would have been a no-brainer. There was a time when Lamar Jackson would have been a no-brainer, been the quarterback of the AFC North. But right now, I think it's consistency, and that's what puts it over the top for me with Joe Burrow. And I wanted to look up his stats because I was blown away looking at his numbers from the last two seasons, 2021 and 2022. And this is the team that made deep playoff runs. This is the team that made Super Bowl appearance. And in 2021, Joe Burrow, 70% passer, 4,600 passing yards, 34 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 108 quarterback rating. 2022, following season, nearly identical, 68.3 completion percentage, 4,500 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So just a little bit less yardage, a little bit slightly better touchdown to interception ratio, 100.8 quarterback rating, but almost identical. The unbelievable consistency of Joe Burrow and high level consistency. And when you consider Lamar Jackson, the way his last two seasons have ended and been banged up, that's what puts it over the top for me with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, the big thing I saw from Burrow from this past year, from the year before, was his stats remained awesome, as you mentioned. But Mahomes went through this too without Tyreek. Is the league has gone so much to too high safeties and take away the big play. Before this past year, if Burrow had single high, he might as well scream from the rafters, I'm going bombs away to Jamar. I mean, and teams took that away from him, and much like they did with Tyreek out of the picture in Kansas City. And Mahomes and Burrow, not coincidentally, were the best two quarterbacks in the league. And in sort of a Brady-like manner, we'll death by 1,000 paper cut you if that's what you're going to take. And not all quarterbacks will put their ego to the side and just 6 yards, 7 yards, 3 yards, move the sticks. Burrow did a lot more of that.
And looking ahead a little bit at the receiving weapons, are we being unfair to Lamar because of the weapons that Burrow has to throw to?
A little. I mean, this is going to be a huge year for Lamar because clearly, including his tight end, he has the best group of pass catchers he ever has, and which is why I want him in fantasy. I mean, I think Lamar's set up for a monster year. He could win the MVP this year.
And I do think the injuries is the biggest factor for me, because if we've seen full seasons of Lamar Jackson and, playoff runs, it might be a different conversation here. But I think we both agree Joe Burrow is our AFC North quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar would probably get this honor in 4 or 5 divisions. I mean, he's just in the wrong one right now.
Running back. J.K. Dobbins of the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals, Najee Harris, since being drafted in the first round of the 2021 draft, has been the number one back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is there an argument for any of them over Cleveland Browns running back Nick Chubb?
It's a good foursome. Dobbins is another target of mine early on in fantasy in June, but there's no argument. I mean, Chubb's the best of the 4. It's a good group, but they're all B-level guys. He's an A-level guy, so you're out of luck.
Totally agree. That one's quite easy. Nick Chubb is our running back. We got Joe Burrow. We've got Nick Chubb at quarterback, running back. There is some conversation to be had at wide receiver, though, Matt. Next, I want to skip wide receiver because it's a longer conversation and go to tight end and get that one locked in. Okay. And there, I think, is the first opportunity for a Baltimore Raven to show up here in our group. And again, I don't think it's a very difficult conversation looking at the tight ends of this division. There's some good tight ends, though. Pat Freiermuth in his second year, the round right after Najee Harris was drafted, looking like a good class there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. David Njoku has had a really interesting career and actually a surprising resurgence to me as the number one guy there with the Cleveland Browns. Irv Smith is now the tight end, along with Devin Asiasi and a group of guys with the Cincinnati Bengals. But, I mean, Mark Andrews is clearly the class of this division at tight end.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big Njoku fan. I thought Freiermuth was the Steelers' best offensive player last year. And frankly, watching him at OTAs, he looks even better. I mean, I think he has a very, very bright career, but you can't put him over Andrews at this point. I mean, I think Freiermuth might be the 6th or 7th best tight end in the league and might finish the season even 5, but Andrews is 2 or 3, you know. So,
And if you're going too tight, so maybe you could say, okay, Freiermuth's maybe a little better blocker. It could be our Y tight end. Then you move Mark Andrews around as a receiving weapon. But
sure, that'd be a hard thing to defend. But if
yes.
we're picking him on tight end, it's one guy.
Could Freiermuth sneak into our little flex spot? Because we could run an offense that's 2 tight ends in that. So put a pin in that one. Have a feeling
especially as good a receiver as Andrews is. You know, we don't want Andrews lining up next to tackles blocking Myles Garrett all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And speaking of Myles Garrett,
he'll be on the team
here with the with the NFC North is kind of scary. Okay, we'll get to the receiving weapons, offensive line, and the defense of the North next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Birddogs. Matt talked a little bit about his brand new Birddogs he's got, whether it's a birthday party, you're celebrating, you're hanging out, summertime barbecue vibes by the pool. If you go from podcasting to going on a hike in your Birddogs. Birddogs make you look good. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. And while you look good in Birddogs, you also feel good in Birddogs, because Birddogs shorts do the exact same thing that some other bigger brands like Lululemon, but fit way better. And they fit way better because they're not made of that stiff, restrictive cotton like your regular shorts are. Birddogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. So they're practical, they look great, super versatile shorts and pants at Birddogs. Get them with a liner, get them without a liner, and then you're just rolling in style to your 50th birthday party, as Matt this weekend. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Protect it from your family members so you can drink out of it. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you.
Yeah, hands off on Saturday, ladies. I know I'm going to be irresistible, but I mean, best you can do to keep your hands off me. Being a 50-year-old stud. Make
sure that Mrs. Williamson, you'll notice her. She's got the Birddogs tumbler in her hand. Make sure she's not around if you try to make your move.
You don't want to mess with the cold. Yeah.
So here we go. Wide receivers, Matt.
Yeah. 2 slam dunks.
Ja'Marr Chase is the first slam. I thought there was one slam dunk and then a conversation. So who's your second slam dunk here in the starting lineup at wide receiver? Because I think it's clearly Ja'Marr Chase.
And Chase would be on any roster. I mean, I think he's a top 2 receiver, or 3 or 4 maybe at worst. But so we're very happy to have him. I think Higgins is as well. I think Higgins is noticeably above the rest of the division. While he might be a tier behind his teammate, I still think he's clearly number 2. The third receiver spot's maybe our best conversation of the day, though.
You're just going to disrespect the career of Odell Beckham here. You're going to disrespect first rounder Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. And what about your guys over there in Pittsburgh with George Pickens? The second rounder from last year has been making highlight reel catches in Deontay Johnson after and in fact, does Deontay Johnson lead this division in receptions right now?
Oh, I'm sure. Deontay's actually my pick, and it comes down to Deontay or Amari Cooper, who's had a very good career, he's had a better career than Deontay. And everyone hates Deontay Johnson because he didn't score a touchdown last year, and fantasy makes the world go round. He's the leading target getter on this team almost every week, and there's only over the last 3 years, there's only 3 or 4 receivers in the league. It's like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs that have more targets than Deontay. Targets are earned. I know he's in the doghouse around here a little bit. Too many drops, doesn't make the big plays. He's open all the time.
His ability to separate is awesome. And most of Amari Cooper's career statistics have come outside of this division. Odell Beckham doesn't have any catches in this division yet. And so if you're looking at career North receptions, it's Deontay Johnson, then I think Ja'Marr Chase, and then T. Higgins. So I think those are going to be our 3 wide receivers, it looks like.
Yep, and Pickens has a very high ceiling, but he's an unrefined route runner. I keep referring to underdog fantasy, which applies to these positions. But those 3 Ravens receivers are all going right next to each other. I would take Bateman of the 3. I mean, I think he's going to lead the team in targets at the receiver position.
Still waiting on that Bateman breakout.
I know.
but
I'm in on
it hasn't
that.
happened yet. So Deontay Johnson has broken out. So Deontay Johnson is our wide receiver 3 here, unless you want to make an argument for Freiermuth. You want to make an argument to go 2 running backs potentially with this squad instead of a 3rd wide receiver.
Is Freiermuth that much better than Deontay? I mean, I should probably address this question to myself. I just saw them both a minute ago. I think the answer is no. I mean, they're neck and neck. I'd rather have 3 receivers than 2 tight ends, but it's close.
And then if you look at just stylistically, if we're putting together a roster, and it's like, okay, George Pickens kind of too similar to T. Higgins. T. Higgins is your right receiver. He's on the outside. Deontay Johnson, move around in the slot, use those quicks to get open underneath, have Jamar Chase on the other side. So, yeah, I like the way this is coming together.
Good trio, yeah. The O-line's not great, by the way.
Could we have another appearance of a first-round draft pick that we haven't seen play in the NFL? In the first division we did, the AFC East, we had Dalton Kincaid, a first-round tight end for Buffalo, as the representative. Could Broderick Jones be that guy in this division, Matt, for the AFC North? And since you are in Pittsburgh, you're broadcasting live from OTAs and mini camps there. What have you seen from the rookie? Could he be somebody that's all division as a rookie?
So my black and gold blood loves the pick. I mean, it's the first time they've drafted a tackle since like 1996. I mean, it's crazy. He's very impressive physically. I've watched a lot of him 20 feet away. You know, I've watched more of him probably than any Steeler because he's the first round pick in offense practice right next to where I was broadcasting. Next year, I think he'll be the pick. I'm not even sure he starts the season. I mean, he has technique work to do pass protection wise. He's just too raw for me to throw this on this team the way we're devising it. But I wouldn't trade him for Orlando Brown or Ronnie Stanley. You know, like if one of the division rivals called saying, well, we'll trade your guy for our guy, considering age, money, I would not trade him. But I don't think he's the best player right now.
Okay, so the future is bright for Broderick Jones.
Yeah.
He's a young prospect, and there's still some work to do technique-wise. Okay, that adds up with what the scouting report says about Broderick Jones. So then it comes down to at left tackle. I mean, the stalwart, Ronnie Stanley, he's, been banged up in recent years. You've got Orlando Brown Jr., big money free agent. And look, we might be able to move a guy to right tackle, but here's the problem. Orlando Brown doesn't want to play.
He ain't going. He's not going.
Maybe we can't utilize him over there. So is it Ronnie Stanley or Orlando Brown at left tackle? Or are you considering Jedrick Wills? Or another player there on the left side?
Yeah, and frankly, Stanley and Brown were teammates when this controversy came up, so neither one of them's going to right tackle. I would love to say Ronnie Stanley. I mean, he is the one that should be number 1 in this division. He's the most talented. His best days as a pro are number 1. But since his ankle injury, I think he's been a shell of himself. He's been in and off the field. It's one of the more, I don't say tragic, but unfortunate stories in the whole league because he got injured. They were playing the Steelers the upcoming week. They signed him like Tuesday of that week, played the Steelers, got hurt, and has never been the same. You know, like it's brutal for the Ravens. It's unfortunate for him. At least he got paid. I think he's one of the most pivotal Ravens, period. So I think Orlando Brown has to be the pick, although I've referred to him as maybe the most overrated left tackle in the league too.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't love this line.
Yeah, maybe this is where this division falls short because it's not bad up until this point at all, and still looks like we might be able to put together a pretty good offensive line. So who's on the right side then? You're going to move over Jedrick Wills. You're going to use Jack Conklin on the right side. I think both of the starting tackles with the Cleveland Browns could make some sense there. You got Jonah Williams, Morgan Moses, Okorafor, your guy over there in Pittsburgh. Who do you like at the right side?
Chooks is solid. He's not a liability, but he's not in the equation. I like Wills, but he's kind of not lived up to expectations. I heard they were very torn whether to pick up his 5th-year option or not. They decided to. So I don't want to even do a position change with him. This is so boring, but I think it's Moses or Conklin. I mean, they're just veterans you can count on that are probably seen their best days, but they're fine. You know, they're reliable.
Yeah, I've got Jack Conklin.
That's fine
on my list, so
I'm cool with it. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going Orlando Brown, and Jack Conklin at tackle.
Yep.
How about the interior of the offensive line here? Do you want to go to guard or center first?
I think guard is easy. You know, with all, frankly, the Steelers set of guards has become very good, and no one seems to know it. But I think it's a top 5 or 6 set of guards. I still have a lot of respect for Zeitler. but I think it's the Browns guards.
Just both of them. Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, plug them in left, right. You're done.
Yep. I think it's the best set of guards in the league for any team. I think Bitonio's a top 4 or 5 guy, and Teller's not that far off.
I would argue that Alex Kappa deserves to be in the conversation there.
He's good.
At right guard. Zeitler's very good. Seumalo, James Daniels, I thought has been just a really weird player up and down throughout his career.
So.
Like, is he good or is he not? He's got the athleticism. He's got the tools. It's just finding the right spot and the right scheme for him. I don't know what it is really that's the secret sauce for James Daniels to have that consistency in his career. I have no problem with Bitonio and Wyatt Teller. I just want to throw Kappa out there as potential.
I'm glad you mentioned him. We should have. Yeah, he's a very good player, but he's probably the 4th best guard in this division. All right, center's weak.
Take us through the center position while I type in these.
Yeah. Mason Cole's a Steeler guy. He's Joe average. I mean, he's not the Steeler legacy at center. He'll be replaced sooner than later, but he's fine. Linderbaum is probably my pick because he got better and better as the season went on. He is a first-round pedigree guy. He still struggles with a big nose over him. He's 280 pounds or whatever. And obviously grading him off of how Baltimore plays football is a little tough to do because they don't play offense like anybody else. Posick had a very good year for the Browns, and they gave him money. What's his face with Cincy's fine as well. But I think it's Posick or Linderbaum, and it's going to be kind of a weakness, I think, when you compare the other other 7 divisions.
Yeah, I think it's Linderbaum, and you saw signs as a rookie. And then by the way, speaking of wrestling, he was a big time wrestler. He could have been part of our wrestling group that we were talking about. Him and Jedrick Wills, or not Wills.
Tristan Wirfs did a battle. Yeah, right.
Yeah, big time Greco-Roman wrestlers. But just kind of projecting because this is a 2023 projection. So will he be better in year 2 as most players are, especially on the offensive line? I'd be willing to bet on that as our all division center.
Yeah, that was my pick as well for all the same reasons. I think year 2 will be better, and year 1 got better as it went along.
So the offensive line, okay, maybe mediocre as all division offensive lines go. Some good players there, 3 out of 5 of them from the Cleveland Browns. But when we start looking at the defensive side of the ball, the scariest group of edge rushers of any division is going to be coming out of the AFC North next. Thanks again, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to all the everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, make sure you are subscribed up to the new Peacock and Williamson YouTube channel, and you can find us on all of your podcast apps. Anywhere you find your podcasts, you can find Peacock and Williamson. Woo, TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. That is a scary combination, and all due respect to the Hendricksons and the Hubbards and
Darius Smith's a good player. Yeah.
The division, it's Garrett and it's TJ Watt, and look out quarterbacks.
End of story. Yeah. I mean, that's the strength of our team so far. Quarterback's really strong, but that's as good as it gets.
When it comes to the interior of the defensive line, Matt, I am going to fight for DJ Reader at nose, and I don't care who you put next to him.
I think it's a slam dunk, Cam Hayward and DJ Reader. I mean, Cam Hayward's a stud.
I love he's it. To be honest with you, I was kind of looking at Cam Hayward as a defensive end. So when you talk about him as a tackle, which is clearly what he is especially in the pass rushing situations, and a perfect tandem for him to be that, the versatile bigger end tackle to go with the nose tackle. So actually the whole defensive line is easy and it's
really good. Really good. Yeah. I like this group quite a bit. Tomlinson from the Browns is a nice addition to the division, and I think he'll pay off for the Browns, but he's probably 3rd. And Reader's a really, really good player.
I mean, we're talking pass rush. We're talking defending the run. Watt, Reader, Cam Hayward, Myles Garrett, and they're going to eat up a lot of blocks for these off-ball linebackers. Where do we start at linebacker in the AFC North, Matt?
I think that's maybe the weakest position in the division. Roquan's the easy one for me, and he's a star, and they just paid him and invested in him. Then it's a gap, and it comes down to me of one of the 2 Bengals guys, Logan Wilson or Pratt. Probably prefer Wilson, but could be swayed either way. And I still love JOK with the Browns. That's a bit of a Linderbaum-like projection because we haven't seen a lot, but there's a lot of talent there.
I mean, I don't even want to spend any time on it because I think it's JOK all the way.
Okay, I'm fine
what
with
I've
it.
seen with him as a rookie, when you got some beef in front of you, and that makes this a really versatile defense as well because of what JOK can do and what Roquan Smith can do athletically. I love that combination. So Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is easily my second linebacker here. And there's some other good linebackers, so I don't want to bypass the other guys. They deserve mention, but Roquan Smith, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, he has the highest ceiling of all those guys I mentioned by far. Just a little less proven, a little bit of a projection. But I'm cool with it. Let's swing for the fences there.
Okay, that brings us to cornerback here with the AFC North, and it's not the greatest. Not the greatest position here, but with the pass rush that's up front and some athletic linebackers, maybe they don't have to cover as long. But man, my big question is what's going to end up being our nickel look here? And are we going to maybe we might have to go back to the linebacker group and find 3 linebackers and utilize Koramoah as sort of that star position guy as a third linebacker. So we'll keep that in mind as we go through cornerbacks. Marlon Humphrey, not coming off his best run, but I still think Marlon Humphrey and Denzel Ward are probably the leaders to take the 2 starting spots at cornerback. Patrick Peterson, obviously, in the past would have been the guy, but he's no longer that guy. And the other starting corner projected here for the Steelers would be a second round rookie in Joey Porter. So you're probably not going to plug him in over any of these guys either.
No, I think it's Ward and Humphrey for sure. Neither one blew our doors off last year, but they're big money guys, established, not the best. I mean, it's certainly not like Sauce and Ramsey were the other day. That's for sure. I mean, they're good. They've been to Pro Bowls. A nice thing about Humphrey is he spent a lot of time in the slot. I mean, as number 1 corners, he plays the slot quite a bit. So they're the 2. My third, I think, is Awuzie from the Bengals. I mean, he's fine. I mean, he's a good player. I mean, and he was missed when he was out last year.
I totally agree. Chidobe Awuzie would be the third corner in this group. Let's take a look at safeties and then decide if we want to go with Awuzie or we want to go a third safety. We want to go another linebacker and let Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah be that sort of dime linebacker, extra safety look. And when it comes to the safeties, I think it's pretty clear. And really, it's a much better position than the corners, I think, and the linebackers potentially here with the safeties in this division. And it starts with your guy, Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, he might be the best safety in the league. I mean, he's an easy one for me. They're a little bit similar in that they're both frees, but I don't really care about that because Minkah has great versatility. I think Marcus Williams from the Ravens is the clear number 2 and is probably a top 10 type safety. So it's Minkah and Williams for me. The name I just want to throw out there, I kind of like Grant Delpit, but I mean, they're not competing with Williams, the number 2 spot. I wonder what you think for that 11th guy, for your nickel player of Kyle Hamilton. I mean, he was a stud safety coming out of Notre Dame, played a lot of slot for them last year. I mean, he's the Kelsey matchup type dude. But he was inconsistent, and he doesn't have a chance to be one of the top 2 safeties for us. But he would be useful on this defense. I mean, it kind of comes down to would you rather keep him or Awuzie or go get a Logan Wilson? You'd love to add like Hendrickson as your 11th guy, but I think that's cheating.
Yeah, that would be cheating.
Yeah.
It would be a best 11 situation, but it would be kind of a funky front too. But you could go 5-man line, DJ Reader in the middle. And that would be very interesting. But no, I think we've got to stick with a defensive back here.
Yeah.
And I think I would take a Awuzie.
That was my vote. When I wrote down my 11, he was my basically 11th player. Hamilton is kind of enticing, but I mean, how many projection guys could we have on this team? Give me this sure bet.
Yeah. And even if let's say we went Awuzie as the start or if we went with a different linebacker, I would put Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in here as the extra slot over Kyle Hamilton still, just because it's a little more. And I just like the projection there, and it's still a projection for both those guys. But give me the projection linebacker over the projection safety when we have, I think, some decent options there in the secondary.
I was thinking that if like Logan Wilson's case was a lot stronger, like clearly he's better than JOK, and we're fighting over Hamilton versus JOK, 2 former Notre Dame guys. I'm with you. I would prefer Owusu Koromora of the two.
And this is a big year for Hamilton to show us something where we're like, oh yeah, how could we have left him off the list last year, right?
Sure.
And that could certainly be the case. And to be honest with you, maybe Logan Wilson and JOK is a better combination than what we have. But I like the way we got it better.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. I'm not dismissing the fact though that Marcus Williams and Hamilton this time next year might be one of the top 2 or 3 safety pairings in all football. I mean, that's very possible. And they're very different.
I mean, they're high pedigree guys, so that's what they're hoping. That's what the Baltimore Ravens are making on for sure.
Yeah, so that's possible. This team's good. I mean, like the safeties are great, the edge rushers are great, but as good as this division is, they're not going to win a lot of games in our 8-team tournament, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like there's going to be some divisions that are just really that lock down more positions at a higher level. And both of the divisions we've done, there's like, there's a couple position groups where, like, surprisingly, it's not as high end as maybe we thought, although it's always going to be very good when you're putting together 4 teams to make one position group. And surprisingly, there's a ton of Cleveland Browns on this list. I guess I don't know if we should be surprised. 3 of the 5 offensive linemen, you got Nick Chubb, you got Myles Garrett, you got Denzel Ward, and we got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So what is that? That's 7 Cleveland Browns, which is so far the most of our first 2 divisions, the most of any team.
I guess that doesn't surprise me. They have a nice roster. I mean, even without a first-round pick, even without using their big investment, Watson, I mean, obviously their season teeters on that. The last thing I just want to bring about this division, and I hope I don't sound like too much of a homer after the Steelers O-line additions, but I think these 4 O-lines, if I were to rank the 32 in the league right now, would all end up in my top 10, and Browns would be number 1. They'd probably be like 3rd or 4th. And then the others would be like 6 through 10. But our O-line isn't very good. You know what I mean? Right.
I mean, it's not, I don't want to say it's not very good, but there's less star power than some other offensive lines for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the strength of our O-lines are guards.
And by the way, Matt, so the Browns have the most players, 7 representing their division so far. The Steelers
They have the lowest. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're tied for the lowest with, oh, no, excuse me. They are the lowest. There's only 3. No, there's 4. Yeah, there's 4. So the Steelers are tied for the lowest with 4. I believe it was the
Deontay and the 3 stars on defense. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Understandable.
And Deontay's hanging on by a thread.
Yeah, he was just missed almost. Yeah, right. He better get in the end zone this year.
All right. There is the All-AFC North team. Let us know where we got it right and wrong at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen. Just really quick, Matt, just looking at this division now, we've already done one division. We haven't done them all, but do you think this is going to be near the top, near the bottom, in the middle, as far as stacking the divisions when we're all done with these all-division teams?
Well, I think when we get to the South, we'll feel better about this one. You know what I mean? They're pretty soft. I mean, Deshaun Watson would have been the quarterback in the South, but I think the division is better than the All-Star team.
I agree. Yeah. The individuals are bigger than the sum of their parts in this case.
Or the other way around. I'm not sure if you said that right or the wrong way. Right? We get the point. Right.
All right. We'll keep going. More divisions. We'll break them all down right here on Peacock and Williamson. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make sure you're subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Matt and I back next time right here, Peacock and Williamson.